Which choice best states the main purpose of the text? So let's read through. A number of Indigenous politicians have been elected to U.S. Congress since 2000 as members of the country's two political parties. In Canada and Latin America, on the other hand, Indigenous people have formed their own political parties to advance candidates who will advocate for the interests of their communities. This movement has been particularly successful in Ecuador, where this person, a member of the Indigenous Party, was elected president of the National Assembly. So there's a contrast. In the US, Indigenous people have become part of the two existing parties, but in other places, Indigenous people form their own parties and they advocate more exclusively for the interests of their own communities. And then we're getting the example of Ecuador, where this person joined the Indigenous Party and was elected president of National Assembly. So let's go ahead and look at the answers. So the main purpose, to trace the history of an indigenous political movement and speculate about its future development. We don't see any speculation about the future development, so we can get rid of that one. B, to argue that indigenous politicians should form their own party. That might be implied in this, but it's not specifically telling us that. It's just telling us what has happened. So it's not saying this is what you should do. It's saying this is what others have done. C, to highlight two approaches to achieving political representation for Indigenous people. Well, there were the two approaches because there was the way it's done in the US and the way it's done in Canada and other Latin American countries. And D, to consider how Indigenous politicians in the US have influenced Indigenous politicians in Canada and Latin America. Well, what they're describing in Canada and Latin America is very different. So we're not influencing them. So we can get rid of that one. So the answer here is going to be C.